fluorescent lights of Walmart buzzed above as I pulled a series of shopping carts towards the cart return area on a chilly autumn night. Even though it was mostly empty at this late hour, the store still had the vitality from the previous day's activity. I had no idea that this routine action would bring me face to face with an unearthly entity in a nightmare that would alter my perception of the commonplace act of shopping forever. The wind whispered through the deserted parking lot as I stacked the carts with a clatter, adding an unsettling soundtrack to the desolate picture. My footsteps resounded in the silent night as I walked back toward the entrance of the store. I saw a shopping cart sitting by itself in the shade of the cart return area at that moment. I looked at the cart. It was abandoned and looked like it had been forgotten. Its handlebars shined under the fluorescent lights, and its wheels were precisely aligned. Even though the shopping cart was normal, there was a faint unease that permeated the surrounding atmosphere. My curiosity overcame me, and I moved closer to the lonely cart. A sudden shudder went down my spine as I grasped for the handle. The temperature noticeably fell as the air appeared to thicken. My palm hovering in midair, I paused for a second before the strange tug of the wagon pulled me in. A surge of chilly energy shot through me as I clutched the handle. It seemed as though the cart itself contained a secret, a presence that went beyond the commonplace. The feeling was only momentary, yet the discomfort persisted. I dismissed the weird sensation, blaming it on the late hour and the quiet parking lot. I pushed the cart in the direction of the cart return area, determined to put it back where it belonged. But every stride seemed to be met by an unexplained resistance coming from the wheels. The ordinary task took on an unnerving layer, as it seemed as though an unseen entity was attempting to obstruct my attempts. The fluorescent lights flashed above, creating uneven shadows on the ground as I arrived to the cart return area. The lonely cart appeared to be pulsating with an unearthly energy as it was suddenly encircled by its mates. Uncomfortable tension was created in the air by a gentle hum. Disregarding my increasing uneasiness, I tried to free the cart and allow it to return to its other animals. It resisted, which surprised me. The cart defied the rules of physics by staying securely in place, even as the wheels dug into the pavement. It felt like a hand gripping it that was invisible and would not release. I felt a feeling of impending doom as I struggled with the uncooperative cart. I looked around the empty parking lot in a fit of annoyance, almost expecting to see a hidden camera or prankster, but the night did not move, and the lonely expanse of the Walmart parking lot was the only reminder of this unsettling encounter. The wagon gave one last push and reluctantly shifted. Its wheels made a creaking sound as it moved forward on the pavement. The sight was transformed into a bizarre ballet of light and shadow as the fluorescent lights overhead flickered more furiously. Something strange seemed to be permeating the air, as though the foundation of existence had been briefly upended. A silence descended upon the parking lot as the cart reunited with its friends. There was an unusual quietness in the air when the wind stopped whispering. It was at that moment that I observed a figure standing at the edge of the parking lot. It was a dark shape that was watching the action with a level of intensity that made my spine tingle. The shadows made the figure appear as if it had materialized out of thin air. If it had any eyes, they shone with a strange light. I felt a wave of terror come over me when I understood that this mystery observer was the source of the presence I was sensing, not just the cart. Trying not to lose my cool, I said, "Hey, can I help you with something?" Into the void. The figure stared at the cart return area, not saying anything. There was an unsaid agreement between us that this interaction was out of the ordinary, and it sent a shudder down my spine. The figure started to move, deliberately making strange gestures. The air around it seemed to ripple with every step, giving the place an otherworldly feel. Fear pricked at the boundaries of my awareness, telling me to turn away. Yet a macabre fascination kept me there, as though I were only an observer in a terrible drama. The figure was getting closer, and I could hear a faint whisper, words that were almost unintelligible. The language had an unearthly power, and the words created a melancholic song. It was a chorus of unknowing, and the place where the cart's return turned into a bizarre stage. A few steps away, the figure halted, staring at the cart that had resisted my attempts to give it back. The mumbled syllables became louder, as though they were sending a message beyond the limits of understanding. The sense of unease grew, and I understood that the cart had more meaning than usual. The creature leaped for the cart, its dark hands encircling the metal frame with a sudden surge of intensity. An unearthly power caused the air to crackle, and the fluorescent lights flickered erratically, creating unpredictable shadows that swirled around us. My eyes met the figure's now luminous pools of passion. A barrage of pictures flashed through my head at that very moment. Images of customers pulling carts, everyday scenes playing out in the aisles, and a ghostly presence lurking in the background, unseen by the living. The idea that the cart served as a means of transportation for a lost soul caught in a transitional state between this world and the next came to light. The cart had become the center of this otherworldly interaction between the figure, now a spirit creature, and the ordinary cycle of consumerism. Mumbled words became louder, a cry for sympathy and understanding. A burdened duty to aid in the deliverance of the lost soul chained to the wagon settled on my shoulders. I said, "I understand," with a mixture of nervousness and resolve, one harmony. The figure trembled as the words left my mouth, and an unearthly energy vibrated through the air. Before going back to normal, the fluorescent lights flickered one last time. The icy silence of the night receded as the wind began to murmur again. The figure nodded, becoming little more than a shadow, fading into the night. The cart, which had been an unaccommodating and mysterious thing, suddenly rolled easily in the direction of the others, blending in with them as though freed from an unseen connection. I stood there as the encounter's weight began to sink in. The cart return area had evolved into a threshold between the otherworldly and the supernatural, and the figure, the lost soul, had found release. Returning a shopping cart seemed like a routine task, but it turned into a terrifying confrontation with forces beyond comprehension. I couldn't stop thinking about the incident in the days that followed. The cart return area, which had previously served as a background for ordinary tasks, now had a purpose beyond the material. Now that it was released from its ethereal prison, the lost soul served as evidence of the shrinking curtain separating this world from the afterlife. Among Mart staff members, rumors of the haunted shopping cart began to circulate, generating a sense of wonder and intrigue. Once disregarded in day-to-day operations, the cart return area came to represent the unexplainable. It was a sobering reminder that even seemingly routine behaviors can result in interactions with forces beyond our comprehension, as demonstrated by the meeting with the figure, the ethereal being seeking liberation. As I carried on working at Walmart, rumors of the haunted shopping cart spread among the staff, inspiring both fear and curiosity. Once a commonplace area, the parking lot had the whispers of an encounter with the otherworldly, a story that played out in the modern world's aisles. The haunted shopping cart tale therefore turned into a terrifying warning that the paranormal can entwine itself even in the most mundane locations, turning everyday life into an incredible voyage into the unknown. The stories of the forgotten were kept in the cart return area, which now served as a border between the hereafter and the living. These stories are a testament to the secrets that may be found among the modern world's aisles. My night at Walmart was fateful and will always be in my memory. It altered my life irrevocably. It was a normal evening as I got used to my night shift duties of cleaning the store and replenishing the shelves. I had no idea that anything evil was going to happen in the aisles of Walmart, which on the surface appeared to be normal. The fluorescent lights hummed, and I could hear the distant noises of the automatic doors opening and closing as I moved through the deserted aisles. An uncomfortable silence pervaded the air, and a general discomfort pervaded the environment. Something seemed to charge the air, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I started carefully putting things back in their proper places on the shelf in the electronics department. Long shadows flowed across the floor, given an unsettling light by the TV display's illumination. I felt like I was being watched while I worked, and it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on edge. I made an effort to ignore the emotion, blaming it on the late hour and the loneliness of working the night shift. But when I made my way to the toy aisle, I became more uncomfortable. With their plastic eyes looking at me from the shelf, the toys appeared to come to life in the dim light. It seemed like they were quietly watching everything I did. I told myself it was all in my head and carried on with my tasks, ignoring the building feeling of dread. However, a faint murmur caught my attention, a voice that appeared to come from the darkness. "Help me," it begged, hardly audible, but definitely present. As I looked down the dimly lit aisle, trying to figure out where the mystery voice was coming from, my heart was racing. The toys did not move, but the sensation of being observed intensified. I paused, unsure whether to look into the odd event or write it off as paranoia brought on by tiredness. I moved carefully toward the grocery section just as the overhead lights flickered, briefly darkening the entire space. I saw a blurry shadow of a figure at the end of the aisle during that momentary blackout, and it was gone as soon as it appeared. My heartbeat increased, and I started to perspire coldly. I was forced to admit that there was a problem with this Walmart. I tried to seem calm as I explained the weird events to my supervisor over the radio. I was surprised to hear doubt in return. "It's most likely just fatigue." My supervisor dismissed me, saying, "Finish your shift, and we'll talk about it in the morning." I made the decision to look into it more in an effort to show that I wasn't going crazy. The security cameras at the store may have some information. A sick sensation in the pit of my stomach followed me as I headed toward the security room. With every step I took, the air got colder, and the impersonal, white walls felt like they were closing in on me. When I got to the security room, I looked over the last hour's worth of video. The screens showed the typical sights of abandoned checkout lanes and empty aisles. However, I soon discovered a fault in the video, a momentary distortion that matched the light's flick. I watched the video again, and as I looked closely, I noticed it. The dark silhouette skulking around the shopping aisle's edge. I felt a wave of foreboding and fear eating at me. The figure was real, not a trick of the light or a creation of my mind. I couldn't get rid of the impression that Walmart, which was once a refuge for materialism, was now a home for strange creatures. Equipped with a renewed sense of resolve, I endeavored to solve the enigma surrounding the eerie occurrence within the shop. With heightened senses, I gingerly made my way down the aisles, looking for any indications of the enigmatic figure. Once more, the voice echoed through the deserted store like a ghostly plea, but this time it was more frantic. The voice grew louder as I got closer to the clothes department. "Help me! Keep me from being taken!" it screamed. My spine tingled at the words, and I accelerated my steps, leaving a trail of sound in the quiet. A strong blast of wind came through the store, outputting the overhead lights in the midst of the unsettling silence. I was exposed and lost as I stood there in complete darkness. The voice continued, turning into an eerie chant that seemed as though it were coming from within the Walmart. I found a forgotten maintenance door in the shadows. It creaked open to expose a small stairway that descended into the store's basement. I went down into the chasm against my better judgment, my flashlight producing weak beams that barely lit the chilly concrete walls. A maze of dimly lighted passageways opened up before me as I descended. The oppressive stillness became suffocating, and the air grew colder. With every step the voice led me through the labyrinth, the dread of approaching doom grew stronger. I stumbled into a chamber that had an unearthly shine to it. A pale, malnourished person that appeared to be radiating darkness stood in the center of it. Now the voice came from this ghostly being, its eyes begging to be freed from an endless cycle of suffering. The realization that the Walmart was home to a supernatural being imprisoned in a state of limbo between two realms struck me like a physical blow. With a frantic plea for help, it had reached out to me. I had a wave of empathy and felt driven to set the afflicted soul free. The entity's agony grew more intense, and the atmosphere grew thicker. The song grew more melancholic, as if the pain was woven into the very fabric of the Walmart, and the walls appeared to close in around them. I groped for a way to assist, ideas buzzing in my head. A far-off noise reverberated through the hallways as I was thinking, a deep, savage growl that made my spine tingle. The creature gave me a terrified look and made a strong motion for me to get out of there. The evil energy was getting closer, growling menacingly through the shadows. I took another look around, the formerly familiar hallways appearing as a confusing labyrinth. The creature behind me cried out in desperation, but the growls of the predators drowned it out. My breath caught as I ran through the maze and just managed to stay ahead of the approaching darkness. I took one last look around as I got to the maintenance door. The creature gave itself up to buy me a few valuable seconds as it stood resolutely against the approaching darkness. With a loud click, the door behind me closed, ending the eerie show. Panting heavily, I came out of the maintenance area and saw the Walmart glowing the rally. A strange, peaceful silence had taken the place of the oppressive stillness. The phantom voice was vanished, and an eerie silence had replaced it. Humbled by the bizarre experience, I staggered back to the security room. What was left was the security tape, which showed the last seconds of the being struggling against the approaching darkness. It disappeared into the chasm, giving its life to make sure I could get away. The paranormal happenings at Walmart gained widespread attention. The store turned into a hotbed of rumor and anxiety, with staff members whispering to one another about the eerie night shift. My attempts to spread the word about the truth were greeted with suspicion, and the paranormal events were written off as complex frauds. I quit my work at Walmart because I was haunted by the memories of that evening and wanted to find comfort in the anonymity of a new city. However, the entity's ghost continued to haunt me from the back of my mind, serving as a continual reminder of how thin the line is between the supernatural and the everyday. The memories of that terrible night seemed like a far-off nightmare as I got used to my new existence. But then a strange incident confronted me with the Walmart entity's persistent presence. I heard the familiar voice one night while I was meandering through a vacant shopping center, a faint echo of the entity's cries of desperation. The thought struck me like a ton of bricks. The creature was not limited to the Walmart. Rather, it was a roaming soul that was destined to live forever in the space between worlds, echoing through the deserted hallways where its calls for assistance, a menacing reminder of the increasingly blurred line separating the living from the dead. Her spectral voice vanished from view as I stood in the deserted mall. The creature's suffering was turned into an eerie tune, a funeral march for a spirit gone missing and left to wander the empty aisles of the retail industry. My perception of reality had become hazy due to the Walmart night shift, which threw me into the unknown and irrevocably altered me. The bright, antiseptic lights of Walmart projected an artificial glow on the tall shelves, creating a maze of consumer items that reached beyond the average shopper's reach. It was a place of routine, with things tastefully displayed and shelves carefully arranged. I had no idea that the stockroom was hiding a terrifying mystery under the facade of normalcy, a story that would turn into a nightmare while I worked a late shift. As a stock clerk at Walmart, I frequently had to enter the stockroom, the lowest level of the shop. It was a huge room filled with soaring shelves, cardboard boxes, and an unsettling silence. There was an unsettling silence in place of the daytime shopper's bustle, only sometimes disturbed by the hum of overhead lights. I was tasked with working the midnight shift one fateful night, which meant venturing alone into the center of Walmart's stockroom. The monotonous buzz of the refrigeration units accompanied my mundane activities as I made my way through the dimly illuminated aisles. I had no idea that this night would turn into a journey that would blur the boundaries between the supernatural and the real world, a monument to the incomprehensible. From that night, the stockroom, which is typically a dull backdrop to the day-to-day operations, felt different. There was a faint uneasiness in the air, like though everything was holding its breath, anticipating something. I pushed the unsettling sensation aside and concentrated on the work at hand, replenishing the shelves with a fresh delivery of merchandise. The temperature in the stockroom significantly fell while I was working. Ethereal wisps of my exhaled breath danced around me as it hung in the chilly air. I wrote it off as a broken refrigerator and blamed a technical issue for the unexpected coolness. And as I went about my work, I started to feel as though someone was watching me. I looked out into the empty stockroom, half expecting to see a coworker pulling a practical joke or a lingering draft that was dropping the temperature. I was shocked to see how empty the aisles were, with the exception of the faint hum from the refrigeration units. The sense that I was being watched continued, growing more intense by the second. I continued to perform my chores as I tried to get over my mounting discomfort. The unnerving dance of light and darkness was created by the flickering fluorescent lights overhead, casting unpredictable shadows on the towering bookcases. The air thickened, as though there was a secret within the stockroom that was just waiting to be revealed. And strange events started to happen as the night went on. Once perfectly arranged, boxes appeared to move on their own. I anxiously tried to find logical reasons for it, writing it off as the product of an uneven floor or an unstable foundation. But the anxiety that persisted in the air did not go away. The stockroom, which was formerly a known and predictable area, turned into a confusing maze. I heard a faint murmur as I descended down into the store. It seemed like a whisper that could be heard through the aisles. The voices continued to elude me, hovering just outside my field of vision, even though I tried hard to make out the phrases. Trembling with excitement, but yet apprehension, I followed the disembodied whispers. The aisles created a confusing maze with their tall shelves that seemed to go on forever. The murmurs intensified, creating an eerie choir that seemed as though it was resonating through the stockroom's very walls. I happened to discover a neglected nook in the stockroom, an area hidden from view by tall crates and disregarded by day-to-day activities. This isolated enclave had an electric atmosphere, as though there was some force at work in the shadows. The murmurs built to a climax, creating a symphony of voices speaking incomprehensible languages. An odd sight waited for me in the center of the stockroom. A group of seemingly unconnected objects were assembled in a makeshift circle, and something strange was buzzing inside the circle. This mysterious configuration seemed to be the source of the murmur, which induced a sense of both intrigue and fear. It was getting much colder in the stockroom as I got closer to the circle. The whispers took on a desperate intensity as the atmosphere thickened with an invisible presence. It was as though the stockroom had sprung to life, exposing a reality outside the realm of the commonplace. Amongst the objects in the circle, a broken mirror reflecting warped images, an antique typewriter, and a doll with empty eyes seemed to have spectral qualities. The murmurs came together to form a voice, begging for acceptance and comprehension. I felt as though the invisible force was calling me to explore the mysteries that lay beneath the surface of the stockroom. I was compelled to touch the objects in the circle, driven by a mixture of terror and intrigue. The stockroom became a strange dream world, and the air trembled. The tall shelves vanished, to be replaced by a space filled with shifting shadows and spectral sounds. Standing before me was an alternate Walmart that didn't exist in the real world. The products on the shelf were items that were timeless, such as old-fashioned clothing, out-of-date technology, and televisions. It seemed as though the stockroom had turned into a storehouse of long-forgotten memories because of the eerie nostalgia permeating the air. The ghostly murmurs became specter figures, lost souls bonded to the objects in the circle. Their translucent figures made their way down the aisles, grasping for items that were important to them in previous incarnations. Memories of persons who had made a lasting impression on the objects they formerly owned seemed to vibrate right through the very fabric of the stockroom. Fragmented visions of the forgotten souls told their stories as I made my way through this ghostly Walmart. A writer pecking away at a typewriter that once contained the secret to creativity, a youngster grabbing for a toy that comforted them during times of loneliness, and a broken mirror reflecting the dashed hopes of a lonely soul. The stockroom had developed into a hub for recollections, a tapestry made from the strands of long-gone lives. I was driven to comprehend the stories that lingered in the aisles by the disembodied voice, which was now a chorus of echoes from the past. With every step came a fresh story, an insight into the lives of people who had once browsed Walmart's aisles. Previously an ordinary area, the stockroom now served as a link between the past and present. I came across an odd relic in the center of the ethereal Walmart, an old-looking book whose pages gave off an unearthly sheen. The voices begged me to turn the pages and reveal the mysteries that were there. I turned the pages of the book with a mixture of fear and resolve, uncovering pages full of mysterious symbols and flashes of long-lost memories. The eyes of the forgotten souls glowed with a mixture of longing and thankfulness as the pages turned, as though the stories in the book contained the secret to freeing the lost souls from their ghostly prison. The very fabric of the ethereal Walmart trembled. I turned the last pages of the old book, a burden of duty bearing down on me. The stockroom throbbed with vitality, and the lost spirits vanished into the very fabric of the place. The warped aisles of the ethereal Walmart vanished into darkness. I was standing in Walmart's well-known stockroom once more. The improvised circle had disappeared, taking with it all the mystery surrounding the arrangement. The chilly calm of the abandoned stockroom had replaced the previously urgent and desperate whispers. In my hands lay the ancient book, now a memento from the bizarre adventure, a silent witness to the meeting place of the living and the dead. The stockroom had evolved from being a dull setting for everyday work to a tapestry filled with life stories that continued beyond space and time. That evening, as I emerged from the stockroom, the typical Walmart seemed to have changed. The shelves, which were formerly only holding consumer goods, now carried the lingering sounds of stories. The old book and the lost souls turned into artifacts from an adventure that could not be explained, a terrifying story that transpired in the contemporary bookstores. Walmart workers passed along the story of the midnight stockroom incident as a cautionary tale about otherworldly powers that could lurk in the uncharted areas of everyday life. It became a whispered legend among them, previously disregarded in the rush of day-to-day tasks. The stockroom suddenly had a purpose beyond the material. The old book, tucked away and unread, was a quiet witness to the thinner curtain, separating the living from the dead, a warning that even the common places we live in could be hiding mysteries from us. With its tall shelves and chilly hallways, the stockroom evolved into a hub of the unexplainable, a story awaiting revelation for those with the courage to go past the ordinary.